What's going on, Buffs fans? Welcome back to this week's live show. I'm Paxton Haynes.
And I'm J.R. Weeks. We have a great show for you guys tonight. Let's get into it.
The sun has set on the 2024-2025 season for Buffs men's hoops. But before that happened, the squad hosted TCU on Senior Day last Saturday in hopes of gaining some momentum before the Big 12 tournament. Big performances came from the likes of two seniors, Julian Hammond and Trevor Baskin. Hammond dropped 19 points and 7 assists, while Baskin grabbed a season-high 16 rebounds to go along with his 8 points. RJ Smith and Bangat Dak provided a spark from the bench, both ending up with double-digit points. TCU kept the game competitive until Colorado's 26-6 scoring run in the final 10 minutes of regulation. Ultimately, the Buffs dominated TCU by a score of 76-56.
After a roller coaster season, Julian Hammond III was named an honorable mention for all Big 12. Hammond started in all 30 games and averaged 12.5 points per game, 3.2 assists, and 2.5 rebounds. Hammond was also awarded the team's Chauncey Billups Award as the team's most valuable player.
Scobo Sports had a crew out in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament, which began on Tuesday. Let's now take you to Lee Rivera, Oliver Hayes, and Liam Howard, who were at T-Mobile Center for the recap.
We saw a close dub in that one. We thought it was going to be a big blowout, but Colorado likes to scare us down the stretch, as we know. We've seen a lot of that this season. But what were some of your big takeaways from this game? I guess starting with you, Leo.
I think first things foremost, Colorado shot the three ball effectively, and that was probably the biggest thing that stood out. Andre Yakumovsky had a fantastic performance to open that second half, and the momentum really helped carry CU towards the end of that game. Even when things got close, they were able to hold on.
Yeah, it was only a 1 point. TCU actually led at the half by 1 point before Yakumovsky hit 4 threes in the second half. He scored 14 of his 18. He had a game-high 18 points. 14 of those came in the second half. But, Liam, what did you take away from that contest?
Yeah, offense was great, but you also got to look at the defense. The offense wasn't able to get a lot of rebounds. The defense was playing physical. They were not allowing very many open shots, high percentage shots for TCU the entire game. And it really eliminated shots at all levels of the court. And them not being able to generate any offense ultimately was what led CU to being able to come back into that game in the end.
Yeah, the big thing, though, is that CU was not able to rebound. They gave up 15 offensive rebounds in that first half, along with giving away 10 turnovers. And they ultimately gave up 22 offensive rebounds in that game, leading to a bunch more field goal attempts for TCU, making this a much closer game than we expected, because TCU went on a quick 10-0 run down the stretch, led by their leading scorer on the year, Noah Reynolds. He had 17 in that game, but Colorado was able to edge it out. Javon Ruffin had some clutch free throws down the stretch, and so they're advancing to play the number 8 seed, West Virginia.
It was a very busy day 2 in the Big 12 tournament, with the Buffaloes, Kansas Jayhawks, Baylor Bears, and Iowa State Cyclones each enjoying wins on Wednesday.
And, man, it was a fun one today because we saw the Buffs get a big dub over the number 8 West Virginia Mountaineers, and we also capped this day off with a very long overtime UCF-Kansas showdown where Kansas narrowly edged that one out in front of a great crowd here in Kansas City for them. It sounded like a home game, but we're going to get into it and talk about the Buffs first and foremost, getting the win over the Mountaineers. What stood out for you guys? I guess we'll start with Liam.
Yeah, so looking at that Buffs game, I think the biggest thing would have to be the defense for Colorado. They switched to that zone scheme, which really had the big effect, and I think it was a great adjustment by Tad Boyle. Something I wish we could have seen maybe earlier on in the season, maybe try to throw that in there a little bit more, but it's working now in the tournament, and it got the Buffs a win.
Yeah, it definitely did work. We saw that adjustment in halftime. And Leo, I also apologize. I called you Liam at first. The L names, they tricked me up. But either way, Liam, the actual Liam. Yeah. What were your takeaways?
Yeah, I just love the Buffs' ability and the ability they've shown in the last several games just to close these games out. That's something that was like, I think it was enraging for a lot of Buffs fans in a lot of ways, just watching these close nail-biter games and then them not being able to close out, and it almost became a sure thing towards the end of the Big 12 schedule. But recently they've been turning it back around. They closed that. First we saw it against Baylor. Now we've seen it twice against TCU, and then today against West Virginia. And they had to come from behind to get that lead at the very end. And they only had that advantage for those last 3 minutes there. It was their first lead since the opening minute of the game. That's a huge switch, and then to be able to slow the game down at that point and work the clock. Elijah Malone, an incredible performance down the stretch. And then a lot of credit to the guys who were shooting those free throws at the end of the game. Julian Hammond III, RJ Smith, they closed that game out, knocked down their free throws when they needed to hit them, and they were passing up the open looks to close the game out. They did a really good job at the very end of that game, and that's what they're going to need to do against Houston. Houston was one of those games where we had them on the ropes late, weren't able to come from behind and close it out. But I think if we are able to play the same way in these late minutes of the games that we've seen over the last couple days, I'd give us a chance.
Unfortunately, the last seeded Buffaloes team would end their run on Thursday with a crushing loss against the number 2 team in the country, the Houston Cougars.
And unfortunately, we saw the number 16 seeded Colorado Buffaloes take a loss in the quarterfinals of this tournament to the top seeded Houston Cougars. That was a tough one to watch from a Colorado Buffalo standpoint, just because they played well, they fought hard, but Houston was just so evidently the better team. They out-rebounded the Buffaloes. They only had one fewer turnover than the Buffs, but they shot much better. The ball kind of bounced their way, but they proved why they're the number 1 seed. They played solid defense. They rebounded well, like I said. But what did you guys take away from that game, especially with Emmanuel Sharp playing in this contest after not playing in the lone matchup during the regular season?
I think the biggest takeaway is the fight that this team has as a whole. The senior leadership, the message that Tad Boyle has been putting into the locker room, putting to his players is resonating. It's sitting with them, and I think that's something you want to take in going to this offseason, hearing, Tad's post-game remarks. He is very confident in going out, getting more players, and finding the pieces that he feels is going to help support these, sophomores, freshmen who have gotten a lot of playing time in this tournament and who are going to build upon this moving towards the future, Oliver. So I think those are the main optimistic takeaways from this game.
Yeah, I think so too. This run was definitely inspiring. It speaks to some of the doubters, especially of Tad Boyle. But maybe this can make a good impression on some recruits, especially about the culture that you mentioned, showing the fight after a disappointing season. But one of the young guys, Sebastian Ranchik, went down with an injury. He hurt his knee. As far as we know, the MRI said that it was negative, but we'll have to see what his injury is. But that was one of the negative spots on top of the loss. But Liam, what was another thing that you saw that stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, even with Sharp on the floor today, and, that's a different look than they had in the first game, which they did play him close in that game as well. They were still able to fight back. Although the second half didn't really feel close at any point, you look at the final score, they only lost this game by 9 points to the number 2 team in the country. I mean, there's nothing but good things to say about what Colorado came here and did. I mean, I think you ask a lot of people, they shouldn't have been here in this, playing on this day. They should have been back in Boulder by now, but they fought, and they fought to the very end. Credit to the seniors who were fighting for every last second they could get on that team. And I mean, now Tad's got a group of guys that have bought into his culture, and I think that's going to build a great base for the future. Sebastian Ranchik was saying post-game that he is excited to become a leader on this team, especially alongside Bengot Dak, and I expect those two to grow exponentially in the next couple of years and really become the new faces of Buffs basketball.
A big thank you to all of our writers, photographers, videographers, and social media people who made the trip out to Kansas City. The men's basketball season is over. It's time now to take you to this week's Buff Banner.
Hello everybody, my name is Max Friedel here with Sophia Scaturo, and today we're doing the Buff Banner on the future of the CU men's basketball team, which is kind of a shaky topic, with their season that they just had. 14-20 overall record, 3-17 in Big 12 play, not very good. It would be hard for them. I think they would have to really try to digress to next year. But yeah, where they are currently, regular season recap, what do you think?
The Buffs did definitely struggle through Big 12 play. They ended up finishing 16th in the Big 12, last in the standings. However, near the end, somewhat at the beginning, but near the end, there was some impressive victories, hopefully leading us into next season.
Yeah, and some notable wins from that season. Early in the year, upset over number 2 UConn, national championship defenders. However, they did go 0-3 at that Maui Invitational tournament, falling to all 3 teams they played. And the Buffs kind of just caught them on a down week, down game, down year almost. Another big win for CU this year was against CSU, one of the biggest crowds they've seen. Great atmosphere, and obviously beating your arch rival is something to celebrate in the season. They did beat Baylor in a nitty-gritty win, 76-74 late in the season to kind of almost save Tad Boyle's job in a way. And then on senior night, they dominated TCU 76-56, kind of foreshadowing their win against TCU again in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah, heading into the Big 12 tournament, they were the 16th seed, so we definitely had low expectations for this team. However, in that first round, they did beat TCU again. This time the score was 69-67, less of a margin than beating them by 20 points previously. However, second round, again, another surprising win against West Virginia, especially after earlier in the season we had a really kind of nail-biting loss. It was a very close game. Javon Small stepped up really big in this game, as well as CU's bench. They really made a difference on the court. And this kind of gave us a sense of optimism leading into Game 3 against Houston.
Game 3 against Houston, obviously they were ranked number 2 in the AP poll in the country. First 3 quarters of the game was kind of the same as the other one. Close game until Houston's efficiency inevitably had them pull away, ruining Andrei Yakimovsky's season-high night, 25 points. And yeah, like I was saying, in the fall sports report card, I gave them a C- as their midseason grade. I would have demoted that to a D- at the end of the year just because of how they were playing. And then post-tournament, upwards trend, looking like a C+, strong fight in the tourney, proving that they could compete with some of the bigger teams in the Big 12, beating West Virginia, and then giving Houston a fight. But yeah, now it's time to look at what's coming in for next year. So their incoming recruiting class is ranked 40th nationally as of right now. They have 5 high school recruits coming in, one of them headlining 4-star Josiah Sanders. He's a 6'4" combo guard at a Colorado prep, ranked 1st in Colorado. Dynamic scorer and playmaker who should have an immediate impact. We'll see how he kind of replaces the other ball handlers. Who else do we have coming in?
Also coming in, we have 4-star Jalen Holland. He is a 6'4" shooting guard from Dream City Christian in Arizona. He is number 5 in Arizona. He is a strong perimeter shooter with great athleticism, as well as he should be able to bring that high-level scoring ability, hopefully increasing our 3-point shooting percentage.
Another guy coming in is 3-star Isaiah Johnson. He's a 6'1" point guard out of Campbell Hall, California. Quick, crafty ball handler, trying to fill that void that Julian Hammond is leaving with. Who else?
As well as that, we also have 3-star Taco Fawaz coming in. He went to the same school as Jalen Holland, Dream City Christian. He is a 6'10" center from Arizona. He brings much of the needed size that we do not have completely yet, as well as he is offensively raw, and then if he can step up his defensive game, his defensive potential is crazy.
And then finally, their 5th recruit, 3-star Ian Inman, 6'5" forward out of College Park, Texas. Not a complete player coming into college, but he will need, some experience with some of the ball handlers that are currently playing, like Casares and some of the other guys. But, another big topic on who's coming in is who's leaving. So let's take a look at that.
Who's leaving? We have Julian Hammond III, who arguably is one of CU's best players. He is a key leader and one of our primary ball handlers, so we will definitely need to look at who can fill this position. With that being said, we also are looking into the transfer portal to see if other veteran players from other schools are wanting to come in to make that difference or fill in these key roles of people that we are losing.
And speaking of that transfer portal, not only are Julian Hammond leaving with Trevor Baskin, Javon Ruffin, Andrei Yakimovsky, and Jack Peace, but there are a couple of players with risk of leaving, like Elijah Malone, who still has 1 year of eligibility yet. He hasn't made his decision, as well as Bangot Dak. He looks to be coming back, and he's very likely to return, but is a very big target for other teams in the transfer portal. But yeah, that's who's coming in and that's who's coming out. And the future of CU basketball looks optimistic. Tad Boyle likely saved his job at the end of the season with that late season run, getting a couple wins at the end of the season, and then obviously that tournament run. The young core is developing very well. Sebastian Ranchik is turning into a very complete player, as well as some of the other guys, but would still like to see a strong offseason from RJ Smith and Sebastian Ranchik, and then even some of the 5 guys coming in.
I think heading into this next season, our biggest question for this offseason and how we will be developing is who will replace Julian Hammond III at our point guard. We have a couple of people, hopefully Courtney Anderson. I know he was out injured for a while, but could they step back in and fill up this position to really make a difference for the team next year?
I think that they could. I think Julian Hammond wasn't as efficient as he could have been. He wasn't the best defensive guy on the end of the court. Felix Casares is one of the taller guards on CU. He likes to take the ball up, as well as RJ Smith. Javon Ruffin, who they're also losing, was one of their primary ball handlers. But it looks like they are going to be going into that more tall and forward role, like they were in this year with Bangot Dak, Sebastian Ranchik, Andrei Yakimovsky, Elijah Malone, all these big guys. But for some final thoughts, CU showed progress late in the season, which is something that they were not doing earlier in the season. They were able to kind of get rid of that turnover battle that they were working on. And this team's trajectory is generally upwards. It is going to be fun to see next year, how they can do after going 3-17. It would be harder, to be worse than that. But yeah, that's all we have for you guys today. This was Buff Banner, looking at the future of the CU men's basketball team. I'm Max Friedel with Sophia Scaturo. Thank you for watching.
On the women's side of things, Selection Sunday kicks off March Madness this weekend. And although the team most likely will not hear its name called for the NCAA tournament, they should be able to look forward to a women's basketball invitational tournament appearance. This tourney features 32 teams and will begin on March 20th. Good news for Buffs fans, 3 rounds of on-campus games could mean the CU Event Center may host J.R. Payne's squad yet again this season.
Now it is time for the best part of the show, our trivia question. With lacrosse being back in session, we thought, why not do a lax-themed question? So here you go. In what year did the University of Colorado first introduce its varsity women's lacrosse team? Stick around till later in the show when we reveal the answer. More news on alumni, as last night the Buffalo Bills signed wide receiver Laviska Shenault Jr. The former Buff was on the Boulder squad from the 2017 to the 2019 season. Shenault was drafted in round 2 at 42nd overall and is currently entering his 6th NFL season. He appeared in 1 NFL game last season with the Los Angeles Chargers. The wide receiver recorded 5 receptions, 36 yards, and had 0 touchdowns last season.
Next up, defensive back Isaiah Oliver, who is entering his 8th year in the league, has just re-signed with the New York Jets. The veteran back played last year as a slot corner and a safety for the Gang Green and earned a 66 out of 100 grade for the Pro Football Focus, which is just above the league average. Oliver is expected to move up in the depth chart with the departure of cornerback DJ Reed and will be joining the likes of Sauce Gardner and Michael Carter II next season. The details of the contract have not been released yet. However, the Jets had just $11 million in cap space heading into the free agency, and Oliver had just made the cut.
Former Buffs tight end Brady Russell was tendered by the Seattle Seahawks this week in order to secure him for the 2025 season. Russell has established himself as a core special teamer, racking up a team high of 10 special teams tackles last season.
Russell's former teammate Nate Landman, however, was not tendered by the Atlanta Falcons at the start of the league year. After having a good 2023 season, Landman had struggles in 2024. Landman won't struggle to find a job elsewhere if the Falcons don't elect to bring him back. He's a good run stopper as he was credited with 16 run stops last year and would be a solid reserve for any team across the league. Stay tuned for more updates on our former Buffs on our website as we have all of the latest on alumni coverage.
Switching over to the lacrosse field, the Buffs have been very busy over the past week. Starting on Saturday, the Buffs host 5th-ranked Michigan. Colorado kept it close for 3 quarters, but were unable to close en route to a 12-7 loss. Morgan Pence led the way with a hat trick in the loss.
The women's lacrosse team bounced back after a loss to a tough Michigan team last week with its second home win against the season against the Marquette Golden Eagles, racking up 10 goals in the first half. The Buffs' offense was rolling. 7 players scored for CU with a hat trick each for Tegan Ryan and Maddie Shoup.
Freshman goalie Elena O was recognized as Big 12 Goalkeeper of the Week for the 2nd week in a row. Her stellar performance against the then number 5 ranked Michigan Wolverines with 11 total saves and a .468 save percentage. That number earns her 2nd place in the Big 12 among goalkeepers. This week she recorded 6 saves on 12 shots against Marquette.
Tomorrow, the Iona Gales come to Boulder for a daytime showdown with the Buffs. Iona is just 1-5 on the season, but are coming off a 19-1 victory over Central Connecticut. This is a matchup the Buffs should win, but they can't come out flat in the first quarter.
On Thursday next week, the Buffs welcome Stony Brook to town. The Seals are 4-2 on the season and only lost to powerhouse John Hopkins by 1 goal. This will be a big test for the Colorado Buffaloes as they inch closer to conference play. With another week of outdoor weather ahead of us, let's take you now to Xavier McNevitz with this week's weather outlook.
Hello and welcome to this week's weather report. It's been a beautiful week here in Boco, and the nice weather continues into the weekend as women's lacrosse takes on Iona and Stony Brook. Opening draw against Iona is set for 12, and it will be 41 and cloudy to start, and the weather is supposed to continue through the game as by halftime, and it's supposed to warm up slightly to 43, and by the end of the game, 44 degrees. However, according to my weather app, it's supposed to feel like 35 all game with the cloud coverage. I'm not a meteorologist, folks. What do you expect? Their matchup against Stony Brook has a 5 p.m. start time. It's supposed to be a balmy 55 degrees at opening draw. As the game goes on, it's supposed to get a little colder as the sun sets behind the Flatirons, cooling down to 53 at halftime and 50 by the end of the game. It's supposed to be a little windy, and that'll make it feel like it's in the 40s as well. That's all for this week's weather report. I'm Xavier McNevitz. Back to you guys at the desk.
Last week, the Ski Buffs wrapped up their season at the NCAA Championships. While they were able to secure a second-place spot on the podium, unfortunately, they did not keep their title as number 1. The Buffs struggled in a men's 20K, but a strong effort from the women's team secured their runner-up spot. Meanwhile, Utah's wins in both Alpine Giant slalom races put the championship out of reach. Despite the loss, CU earned 12 All-America honors and continued their streak of top finishes, proving once again they're one of the best collegiate ski programs.
After going winless in a road trip through Utah last weekend, the tennis team now has their work cut out for them this weekend in Texas. They battle number 20 ranked Baylor today before taking on 44th ranked TCU on Sunday. These teams come in the middle of a 5-game road trip that ends next weekend with UCF. After Sunday, the Buffs will have played 6 Big 12 matches. 5 of those have been against opponents ranked in the top 75.
The men's golfers placed second at the Lambkin Invitational in San Diego, California. Colorado was led by seniors Dylan McDermott and Justin Biewer. Both golfers shot 9 strokes under par in the tournament and finished tied for 6th place individually. This marks the team's 6th podium finish this season. Colorado is ranked 31st in the nation and has 3 more tournaments to improve before the Big 12 championships. Read more about the tournament on our website.
The women's golf squad heads to Austin, Texas to compete in the Betsy Rawls Longhorn Invitational starting on Monday. Freshman sensation Sydney Givens is no stranger to playing golf in Texas. The Austin native helped lead her high school team to their first 2 state championships in program history. A strong performance from Givens and the Buffs could bring much needed momentum heading into the Big 12 championships.
Hey Buff fans, I'm Kieran Walker bringing you this week's top 7 plays in Colorado sports. Yes, you heard that right. We have a whopping 7 plays for you this week, most of which were from baseball, but we had some men's hoops action as well as they wrapped up their regular season. But enough yapping. We're getting right into it, starting with our number 7 spot, baseball against MSU in their home opener. And Tyler Schlepp up on the plate here. And what was that? I have never seen a pitch like that. That just went way off to the right. I don't know what that was intended to be, but nonetheless it happened. Moving into our number 6 spot. This is a very interesting play. This might have been the play of the week. I'm surprised this is not higher up. But man on second base for Colorado. MSU talking to the pitcher on the mound there, coming up with a genius play as Colorado tries to steal third base. Folks, you've got to see this to believe it. It's a hidden ball trick up for MSU. Unfortunately, that would be overturned, so it did not go their way, but nonetheless, it was a great play. Moving into our number 5 spot, you got to listen to this, folks. This is a very appropriate sound.
Pitch nearly hits him. Garcia coming home. He is in there. Buffs will go to the third. They will get him there.
Dominant performance there by Colorado that day as we go into our number 4 spot. Kieran Harden up on the plate, or up on the mound rather, for Colorado. He's about to take his pitch, and he slips there. That is not something that you want to see make play of the week, but nonetheless it did. Bit of an L there as we go into our number 3 spot. And you got to listen to this one here, folks.
It's a beautiful Sunday.
Oh,
Very peaceful.
very peaceful graduation.
Zach Andrews graduating up at the plate. Lead off here in the bottom of the 6th.
Here we go.
Vibes are up. Scott Carpenter Park. Great day. Left fielder. Graduation music is a walk-up song.
Congratulations on your graduation, Zach, as we go into our number 2 spot here. Men's basketball against TCU, final game of the regular season. Breakaway play here, picked up by Bengot Dak, and you already know he slams it down with the right hand. The Dak attack strikes once again. What a beauty, and a big W for the Buffs in their final game of the regular season. As we go into our number 1 spot, has to be the best play for baseball thus far. Luca Genovese fires that one deep into right field, and that ball was gone. That was the first home run for the Buffaloes this season, and a great way to start off their home opener. But we love that team's sense of humor. It always gets us going, no matter whether it's on the field or up in the press box. It's always a great time hanging out with those guys. But that's going to do it for our Plays of the Week this week here on Skill Buff Sports. I'm Kieran Warger, and we will see you all after the break.
Welcome to Folsom Feud. I'm your host, Colby, here with 3 contestants today, Lincoln, Balin, and Kieran. Lincoln, start us off.
I'll take game day etiquette for 200.
All right. This is the best way to show respect during the CU fight song.
What is standing, singing loud, and raising your hand in the hook 'em horn sign?
Not what we're looking for. Balin, you have an answer?
What is stand up, sing loud, and do the Ralphie horns?
Correct. Balin, the board is yours.
Give me tailgate traditions for 400.
All right, here's the answer. The must-have item to wear on game day to show your Buff pride. Kieran?
What is black and gold?
That's correct. Nothing says school spirit like those 2 colors. Choose the next one.
Let's do fan etiquette for 600.
Fan etiquette. The proper response when you hear someone yell, "Go Buffs."
What is Skull Buffs?
Skull Buffs is right. Looks like we've got some true Buffs fans here. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you to our contestants, and see you next time.
The club baseball team snagged their first series last weekend against Metro State. They split the doubleheader on Saturday and were able to secure the conference win on Sunday in a 17-4 mercy. The series win brings their record to 3-4 on the season and 2-1 in the Mid-American West Division.
Following the win, the team travels to Colorado Springs tomorrow for a 3-game series against the Air Force Falcons. Saturday is a doubleheader starting at 10 a.m. with the series conclusion on Sunday. This is a big series for the Buffs, looking to continue their early conference success.
The men's club lacrosse team traveled to Arizona last weekend to take on GCU and ASU. Friday night's matchup against the Antelopes was Colorado, who put up 50 shots on nets. Buff Mike Lukowski instrumental in the face-off circle yet again, winning 15 out of 20 draws. Colorado's attack was on fire, defeating the Antelopes 11-5. Saturday's game against the Sun Devils was a close one with lots of turnovers on both sides. The Buffs would emerge victorious once again with a final score of 9-8.
This weekend, the CU men travel to Boise, Idaho to take on the Red Leafs of Simon Fraser and the Broncos of Boise State. The Red Leafs, out of Vancouver, British Columbia, hold a 2-2 record this season and sit at 3rd in the Pacific Northwest Collegiate Lacrosse League. Before returning to Boulder, the Buffs will stop in Boise, Idaho to take on Boise State. The Broncos sit just behind the Red Leafs with a 2-3 record. The Buffs will once again look to dominate in the final weeks of non-conference play.
The women's club lacrosse team traveled to Provo, Utah last weekend to take on the BYU Cougars. After a tough loss to number 11 seeded Utah, the black and gold looked for redemption. It was a close matchup with both teams putting up points early. Brooke Miller and Sydney Schitzman led the Buffs in points with 2 and 3 respectively. The Buffs held on until the very end and finished with a close final score of 9-8.
Here we see Xavier McNevitz working on his reader for the live show. If we didn't have these readers done by Thursday night, chances are we would not be airing this show right now. Be like Xavier. Get your readers done. And don't forget to click save so that you don't lose any of your hard-earned work.
Hey there, Buff fans. I'm Ryan Asaro bringing you this week's Rapid Fire. To start, we have our club men's lacrosse team heading to Idaho this weekend to take on Simon Fraser Saturday and Boise State Sunday. Those games all start at 2:30, and you can find a streaming link on the club lacrosse team's social media pages. Next, the women's lacrosse team is making their debut at Prenta Field Saturday as they take on Iona. That game will start noon and can be viewed on ESPN+. Then, on Monday, women's soccer continues their spring season against the Calgary Wild here in Boulder at 7:30. Lastly, club baseball looks to stay hot in their series against Air Force this weekend. Those games will be played at Air Force, and if there is a stream for those games, the links can be found on the baseball team's social media pages. That's all for me. Now back to the deck.
And we are back to reveal the answer to this week's trivia question. Just as a reminder, the question was, in what year did the University of Colorado first introduce its varsity women's lacrosse team? And the answer is, drumroll please, the 2013-2014 season.
Our tweet of the week comes from the wise words of Coach Herman Boone. Pardon me, world-renowned actor Denzel Washington, who spoke via FaceTime to Colorado football during a team meeting on Thursday. Head coach Deion Sanders rang in the Remember the Titans star for counsel as CU starts up spring practice, and he motivated the Buffs roster with 2 Academy Awards to back it up.
When you pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud too. But eventually, good things grow out of that mud. All fame ain't all it's made up to be. Power and privilege and fame and wealth, hopefully you'll see, but it's not all, it's all made up to be. So yeah, you can pray that it rains on you, but you got to deal with the mud. You be looking up and look down and realize you're 7 feet deep in mud. It's thick. People don't like it. People don't like seeing you do well. We are in the world, but don't be of it. Don't rely on it for your happiness. Rely on the Almighty. Do not rely on this world for your happiness, because it'll tell you Tuesday that they love you and Wednesday that they hate you. They probably said that about your team. You know, it's not consistent.
We'll see if the Buffs can get out of the mud starting with April 19th spring game when the road to a national championship begins.
That's all for this week, Buffs fans.
We hope you guys enjoyed our Yap session for this week.
Tune in to the live show next week to hear almost all the same stuff, so make sure you like and subscribe.
And if you enjoy the sound of ringing sensation of bells, make sure you hit that notification button so you never miss another broadcast.
You heard it here first.